In this video, I will show you step by step how to assemble base pages into entire book. We will learn how to sew a binding strip, make a closing strip, and inner and outer strips connecting the base pages. I will also show you another very simple way of folding book pages, which I really like and currently use. So let's start it. At the very beginning, we have to attach the first pair of magnetic clasps with a diameter of 40 mm on the cover. It always be a plate, and the second part with a convex surface. We will also need vanishing marker, wallpaper knife, line, and a cutting mat. We need to find the center of the right side. My base page is 15 cm, so I will measure half of this value, which will be 7.5 cm. Then measure 3 cm from the right side and draw a dot there. Place the plate here so that its hole lines up with a dot you draw earlier. Then with a disappearing marker draw 2 lines along the side holes. In the next step, make cuts with the knife along these lines. Now take a magnetic clasp with a convex surface and insert its arms into the holes. Next, place the plate on it and bend the arms outwards. We will start by assembling the base pages. We will need scissors, batting, thread with a needle, base page pattern. Mine is the size of 50 mm, and even number of base pages. Last page may be completely blank. If you want to learn how to make a stick base page, click the link at the top of the screen. Place the base page pattern on the batting and cut out the shape with a margin of about 1 cm. Prepare your base pages and arrange them in the order they will be in the finished book. My base pages has the numbers to make it easier for you. In the next step, place the first 2 base pages wrong side together and insert the batting in the middle. It is very important that the base pages overlap, so we can fasten them with the clips in the corners. Now we will sew all 3 layers together using a basting stitch. Finally, cut off excess batting along the edge. Repeat all steps with the remaining 2 pairs of base pages. To make the closing strip, we will need cotton fabric, interfacing fabric with glue, second pair of magnetic clasp with wallpaper knife and cutting mat, vanishing marker, line, and the last pages that we prepared earlier. It is also worth having this type of scissors with teeth. We will need the height of all pages. Let's lay them flat and measure. It is 28 mm. In the next step, we need to determine the size of our closing strip. Its width is constant and it's 40 mm. To determine its length, we need a formula that says that the length of the closing strip is the height of all pages plus 60 mm. In my case, it will be 28 mm plus 60 mm, so it will be 88 mm. We can draw or create a rectangle measure 40 mm by 88 mm in any graphics program. I use the free Inkscape program. In the left corner, click on the square icon, then draw the shape and change the millimeters at the top. In this window, I enter the width of the closing strip. It is 40 mm. And in the next window, I enter the length, which is 88 mm. The rectangle we need has been created. Then we print it and cut it out. Place the pattern on the interfacing fabric on the side without glue. Then trace the shape with a pen and then cut it out. Cut out the piece of fabric that is twice the size of the strip pattern with a margin of about 3 cm. Fold the piece of fabric in half, right sides together. Place the strip pattern on the folded fabric, leaving a margin of approximately 3 mm and outline its shape with a vanishing marker. Then sew the opposite side, leaving approximately 3 mm. Now cut off excess fabric. Arrange the folded fabric in this way so that its part is in the middle and spread this part outside. Then iron it. Place the interfacing fabric on top of the strip with the glue side down and iron it. Then sew the top edge with a margin of about 3 mm. In the next step, cut off excess fabric along the seam line. Now turn the fabric inside out. Now cut the lower edge of the fabric in the line of the edge of the interfacing fabric. Leave no margin. Next, iron both sides of the strip. Now we will attach the second pair of magnetic clasps to the bottom. Measure 2 cm from this edge. Then the middle of this edge. And draw a dot in this place. Attach the magnetic clasp with a plate and the second part with a flat surface in a place of dot in the same way as last time. At the top of the strip, we will sew a 4 cm square to cover the magnetic clasp. In my works, I place on it a number symbolizing the birthday of the gifted child or a simple shape, such as a heart or a star. I have prepared patterns of these shapes for you. They will be available in the video description. Place the number or shape in the center of the square and sew it along the edge. Now place the square with the heart to the closing strip in this way. Remember to match the bottom thread to the color of the cotton fabric. Sew the closing strip to the last page of the book to its left page. To do this, we measure half the height of the page. In my case, it will be 7.5 centimeters. Sew the closing strip twice with the surface of the magnetic glass facing up in this place. You can also fasten it with clips. It will be easier. To make the outer strip, we will need cotton fabric, scissors, interfacing fabric with glue, vanishing marker, and ruler. We mark the width of the outer strip according to the formula. Width of the outer strip is page length minus 40 millimeters. The height of my base page is 150 millimeters minus 40 millimeters, it will be 110 millimeters. Next, we mark the length on the outer strip according to the formula. The length of the outer strip is the height of all pages plus 20 millimeters. The height of all my pages is 28 millimeters. At 20 millimeters, it will be 48 millimeters. My outer strip will measure 110 by 48 millimeters. Just like last time, I will make its pattern in a graphic program, print it, and cut it out. Place the pattern on the interfacing fabric on the side without glue. Trace the shape and cut it out along the lines. Cut out a piece of fabric that is twice the size of the strip pattern with a margin of about 3 millimeters. Fold the piece of fabric in half, right sides together. Then place the interfacing fabric with glue side down on the folded fabric, leaving 3 millimeters from this edge. Then iron it. In the next step, sew the top and bottom edges. Leaving a margin of about 3 millimeters. Cut off excess cotton fabric along the seam lines with these scissors. And then cut off excess cotton fabric along this edge with no margin. In the next step, turn the fabric inside out and iron on both sides. Sew the outer strip to the first page in the middle of its left edge. To make the inner strip, we will need the same things as for the outer strip. We determine the width of the inner strip according to the formula. Width of the inner strip is the width of the outer strip minus 30 mm. Width of my outer strip is 110 mm minus 30 mm, it will be 80 mm. The length of the inner strip depends on the number of pages of the book. We need 40 mm for the first and second page. We also need 40 mm for the penultimate page and last page. These are constant values. Then we need to determine how many double inner pages we still have connected. There is 50 mm for each two inner pages joined together. My book has one double inner page. Therefore, the length of the inner strip of my book will be 40 mm for the first and second page, plus 40 mm for the penultimate and last page, plus 50 mm for the one double inner page, giving 130 mm. If my book had 10 pages, I would add 40 mm for the first and second page, plus 40 mm for the penultimate and last page, plus 50 mm for the third and fourth page, plus 50 mm for the fifth and sixth page, and plus 50 mm for the seventh and eighth page, which gives 230 mm. I made my inner strip measuring 80 mm by 110 mm in a graphics program, printed and cut it out in the same way as when making the outer strip. Place the pattern on the interfacing fabric on the side without glue. Trace the shape and cut it out along the lines. Cut out a piece of fabric that is twice the size of the strip pattern with a margin of about 3 mm. Fold the piece of fabric in half, right sides together. Place the interfacing fabric with the glue side down on the folded fabric, leaving 3 mm margin from this edge, and iron it. Sew the top and bottom edges, leaving 3 mm margin from the edge of the interfacing fabric. Cut off excess cotton fabric along these lines. Then cut off excess cotton fabric along this edge with no margin. Turn the fabric inside out and iron on both sides. Sew the inner strip to the second page in the middle of its right edge. We will now sew the binding strip to the pages. The width of my binding strip is 40 mm. The length of the binding strip depends on the size of the page and is calculated according to the formula. The length of the binding strip is page length times 4 plus 10 cm. The length of my side page is 15 cm times 4 is 60 cm plus 10 cm is 70 cm. For a page with a side of 20 cm, the length of the binding strip will be 20 times 4, that is 80, plus 10, that is 90 cm. I will measure the width of my binding strip, which is 40 mm, on cotton fabric, and mark it with a disappearing marker. Then I connect the dots and cut the strip along the drawn line. If you have a large cutting mat and a rotary knife, it is worth using them now. If you don't have any, you can use a sharp sewing scissors like I will. In the next step, cut off the protruding threads and iron on both sides. We will need a triangle shape with an angle of 45 degrees. I have prepared this pattern for you to print and cut. It is worth sticking it on stiff cardboard so that it will serve us for a long time. Place the binding strip in the middle of the right side along the edge with the wrong side up, then fold the tip outwards about 1 cm. We will start sewing from this point and stop about 3 mm before the corner. In the next step, place the triangle in this place so that its lower edge coincides with the lower edge of the page and its corner coincides with the corner of the page. We will continue sewing until the needle touches the triangle at that point and then sew along the top side of the triangle to the corner of the page. Then sew backwards and forwards one more time and cut the threads. Then fold the binding strip in this way so that its upper and right sides meet the page. Place the triangle again in the same position as before and draw a line from this point to the corner. This is exactly the same place that we just sewed. In the next step, we will start sewing from the corner along this line for a length of 8 mm. You will know what it will be when the right edge of the sewing machine foot coincides with the right edge of the page. When we reach this place, we continue sewing along the edge of the page until we approach the next corner and repeat the previous steps. When the corners are behind us, we mark the place where we started sewing the binding strip. About 1 cm farther, we will finish sewing the binding strip. Then sew backwards and forwards one more time and cut the threads. In the next step, cut the end behind the seam line perpendicular to the edge of the binding strip. Then cut the threads. Now unfold the binding strip to the other side. Fold the binding strip in this way so that its upper edge covers the seam line and secure it with clips. Do this on each side. At the corner, stretch the fabric at the lower edge and cover it with a piece of binding strip on the right side and secure it with clips. The next step, hide and cut out the threads. In the same way, sew the binding strip to the first and second page. Remember to increase the tension on the sewing machine in this part where are outer and inner strip. Before sewing the binding strip to the penultimate and last page, it is worth sticking the closing strip to the page using adhesive tape to prevent it from being sewn in. Prepare a second page. From the left edge of the inner strip, measure 45 mm in two places and mark them with a dot using a disappearing marker. Place the third page here so that its left edge touches the line you draw earlier and secure it with clips. Then turn it over. Correct the position of the clip so that they don't cover the seam line. We will now sew the inner strip to the third and fourth pages along the seam line that runs underneath on the binding strip. To make it easier, we will draw a line from this seam to this seam and sew the inner strip along this line. If you have more internal pages, repeat this step. Measure 45 mm, attach another page, attach it with clips, then sew. I don't have any more inner pages, so I will attach end of inner strip to my penultimate and last page. Place the penultimate page in this way, turn it over, and adjust the position so that the inner strip is in the middle and lines up with the inside edge of the binding strip. Then secure it with clips. Like last time, I draw a line from this seam to this one and sew the inside strip to the last page along this line. All that remains is to sew the outer strip to the last page. I place it on the last page so that it's in the middle and slightly covers the inner strip. Then attach it with clips. In the next step, draw a line between the seams and sew along this line. Our quiet book is ready. I have prepared for you a set of all the patterns you need at one place to make it easier for you. You can find them for download in the description below the video. We can also assemble the book in a very simple and quick way, which I really like. Then the base page is not made of cotton fabric, but of felt. What's great is that the page doesn't have to be a square. It can have any shape, for example a square with rounded corners, the shape of a house, or a shape of an ice cream truck. I love that we can create without limits. Place the finished page on a larger piece of felt and sew it along the edge of the base page. Then cut off the ends along the edge. In this project, it's necessary to determine the place where there will be a hole for all pages of the book. Make a hole where the dot is on the base page pattern on each page. Place a pattern and mark dot in a place of hole. In the next step, use a hole punch to make a hole in the place of the dot. Finally, thread the shoelace through the holes and it's ready. If you have a small book instead of a shoelace, you can also thread a tether pendant. This is a great solution, especially for babies. We can then hang the book in the stroller and go for a walk with it. I hope this video was helpful for you. I put a lot of heart and work into making it. If it was helpful to you, I will be extremely grateful if you leave a comment or like this video. Thank you very much and see you in the next video. Bye bye!